All right, Disney. All right. Let's put things clear. I'm not mad at you. Just disappointed. Just really, really disappointed. What is going on with you? This is probably Disney's worst week. No, not week. It's Disney's worst month. You came out with the Marvels, and it flopped. And now we got the movie that I'm going to talk about today, which is Wish. And guess what? It flopped in the box office. At least from current knowledge. And I mean that because I went to see this movie and during Thanksgiving week, which is this week that I'm talking about. I remember the days in which each Thanksgiving we're gonna get a Disney movie, either from Pixar or from the original Walt Disney Studios. And I remember that no matter if the movie was gonna be good or bad, people still go to see it. It was kind of like an event. But when I went to see Wish, it was just me and I think 3 other families. It was barren. I mean, what is going on? All right. I think I got ahead of myself talking about my experience going through Wish, which I will normally, I'm supposed to be talking about my expectations about this movie. And I want to reiterate again and again and again and again that I'm not exactly a Disney hater. It's just that I'm pretty much harsh on the quality that is giving out recently. And I'm not the kind of guy who kind of like overhypes the whole thing. Especially nowadays, in which most of their movies, they're kind of begin to lose a little bit their touch. I mean, look at those recent movies that they're kind of becoming some of my worst Disney movies I have ever seen. Last year we had Strange World, and while I acknowledge that I dislike it enough because of a lot of agendas that it puts through, I didn't came out 100% hating the movie. Actually, the Disney movie that I hated the most from recent Disney movie is Raya and the Last Airbender. Oh, sorry, I mean Raya and the Last Dragons. So seriously, I hate that movie. And for a movie called Wish, I was actually finger crossing because deep a little bit in my heart, I want to support all these people who are working really, really, really hard on making animated films. And making animation is no easy task. You have to try really hard to make it appealing, watchable, and not pretentious like the Disney movie is going through right now. And speaking of pretentiousness, this is kind of like the biggest drive that Disney was pushing on this year, especially with Wish. And that is because they are having their bragging rights that they're celebrating 100 years for the Disney company. They did that so much that there's even a Disney Plus a special called I think it was called Once Upon a Studio, which collected a lot of those animated films from Disney. I haven't seen it, but people told me about it. And if you want, I will tell you my preemptive opinion about this. Many people are praising it, but me, on the other hand, I find it insincere. I found this move so insincere, and it doesn't deserve to celebrate it, considering how the company treated traditional animators, the animation, and how and the animated movies are going through, and trying to hide all those wonderful movies with the Disney remakes, for live action remakes. I might add. So you have no right to celebrate something that you definitely show that you have no love for the art. And you're gonna say, oh, but the animation is great. Yeah, you can't deny it. It's talented artists. It is a given. Oh, but it made me relive all those wonderful years. Yeah, it's called nostalgia. It's called nostalgia bait. Get off of those nostalgia baits and look at it for what it is. Oh, but it have Robin Williams. A pre-recording of Robin Williams, and at the same time, it is the disrespect to the guy, considering the behind-the-scenes things that they did. But basically, they betrayed the guy. So they have no right to do that. So I might probably watch it to have kind of like a proper opinion of it. But these are mostly my thoughts about Once Upon a Studio preemptively before watching it. So, but in the case of Wish, they marketed the hell out of this movie. They were really saying that this is the movie that's gonna celebrate 100 years of the Disney animation studio. It's something to celebrate 100 years of commitment. You're gonna get something that is gonna blow your man. It's gonna be epic. It's gonna be about wishing upon a star. Get it? Because this is the biggest motto that we have for the Disney studio. When you wish upon a star. But then I begin to see the trailers, and while I wasn't exactly pessimistic about the whole thing, I was still kind of crossing my fingers, considering that the art style didn't seem exactly too bad. But at the same time, there was something that felt undercooked in how it was going to be. But I also felt a little bit cautious, considering the direction that most Disney movies are doing. And then I saw the second trailer, and things got me a little bit worried, mostly on the plot. But still, I was crossing my fingers. I was crossing my fingers that it's gonna be at least a decent movie. I can't claim that I like every single Disney animated movies. I can even name you some of the ones that I don't like. For example, I already told you that I don't like Strange World. I hate Raya and the Last Dragon. Yeah, you know that I'm trying to pull the joke out against it. I didn't like Frozen 2. This is also a little bit of a controversy, but I don't like also Big Hero 6. I mean, I was to put it on short, I was bored at Big Hero 6 for a while, but then they pull out something of a bullshit move that it took me out of the movie, and up to this point, I really don't like Big Hero 6. But I also tell you that there are movies of Disney that I love. I love Lilo and Stitch. It's still one of my favorites. I like Zootopia. I I also like the Great Mouse Detective. The original Beauty and the Beast is still also one of my favorites. And if we're gonna go into Pixar territory, I still love Coco. Although Pixar is another can of worms. Oh, Tangled. I really like Tangled. I think 2 years ago I rewatched Tangled and it still holds up. I really, really like Tangled. And to prove you that I still support Disney in one way or another, I still support Kingdom Hearts. I really even if it has its flaws and all that stuff, it didn't go too bad. I I mean, not many people like Kingdom Hearts. I know that there are some people that are, jumping off the bandwagon and all that stuff. Let them be. But aside from that, I was just, for a movie that it was celebrating 100 years of the company's work. I was expecting Wish to become an epic movie that is gonna celebrate all these things. And lo and behold, after watching it, all those positive things that I was trying to remark, it just turned out to be a wishful thinking. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. The moment I'm recording this is the second time that I'm doing this video. I made a first draft of this video, but so many things came out of my head that I didn't like the result that how it happened, because I thought that I was a little bit mean-spirited or unfair to the movie, because I began to see the Rotten Tomatoes score, and that the audience was kind of like a little bit more forgiving into the movie. And then after much reconsideration about the movie and trying to put the pieces together, I came out to realize that I was wrong. I think I should be more harsh on this movie from what I was giving it credit to. Granted, I didn't hate it as much as Strange World or freaking Raya. Or I didn't hate it as much as Big Hero 6. But still, this comes kind of like in a lower point of Disney, that it kind of showcased that maybe this movie was written by an AI and didn't know exactly how to make a cohesive movie. And they just thought that add some magic here, add some magic there, and you know what? Let the magic flow, and you know what? Children are not gonna say nothing about it. They're just gonna enjoy it here and there. Oh, people, this is the biggest trap that many people that defend Disney are gonna say. The audience. It's obvious that normal audience are gonna get it. I always say that Disney movies are basically kind of like fly traps, in which they have their bright electricity that is attractive to all the little bugs, and once they go deeper into it, they get sapped. Except for people who kind of see into the trap and they see the pretty things, but they acknowledge that it's pretty, but still stay away from falling into the trap. And don't come up again with this gift by saying that, you don't know how to enjoy movies. You're just a pretentious critic that you don't know how to have fun. I just came there to have some fun. Granted, you have that right, but you're still wrong. You are still wrong. And of course, you're not entitled for that opinion, because an opinion is still an opinion. But some people whether you like it or not, they have study or they have experience with stuff like that, and they learn. And apparently, this is not something that Wish showcase. But going back to the movie, the probably the biggest reason I came out disappointed with the movie is that it's weirdly enough really ambitious on what it wants to do and the storytelling that it wants to be. But at the same time, its execution is probably one of the most unambitious movies I have seen. And this is something that you should have put a lot of effort to have the bragging rights saying that this is the 100-year celebration movie. But no, you didn't. This is not a good 100-year celebration. Here's a good example of a good celebratory for 100 years or something. There was this episode and a manga chapter of this series called The Disastrous Life of Psyche. When they reached the 100th mark, they have kind of like it was a 5-minute episode in the case of the anime, in which basically they begin to joke around the number 100, in which the whole episode is just saying this character, I just woke up doing some 100 push-ups. Hey, it's gonna be my 100 jelly coffee. Which is something that this character really like. And then one friend comes in, hey, I read chapter number 100 of that manga. Oh, really? Really? I just only read 100 pages or something like that. And so it kind of becomes a joke to all these people celebrating 100 things. And yeah, many people kind of have this bragging right, and I don't blame them. But in the case of Disney, I really expected much, but there's some things that kind of disappoint me, in which it feels undercooked, and it was just, well, I can't say it was terrible, but it was just bland. I was like, is that the best you could do? Is that the best? We rooted for you. You had a second chance this month with your failure of the Marvels. And then you gave this. And you know what? Like I said, people are gonna enjoy it. People are gonna defend it. Because it's still a Disney product that is gonna have pretty colors, that is gonna keep your children quiet. Is that really important to you? I think that this is kind of like the most important thing for these people that still to this day support Disney, and they don't see that they can do better than just entertain their children or keep because when was the last time and when it was a family event, or when Disney tries to become bold into all these things? I'm not talking about social commentary, but more, instead of being kind of like an social activist of a movie, it tries to define some of the animated norms. Which a lot of some of those Disney movies they had to go through, but then they have to do it because they have to pander to the censors as well as they have to pander with the parents and all this stuff, and it kind of become a very vanilla of a movie. And most of those movies are kind of become either vanilla or they try a little bit too hard on thinking that they're gonna change the world with just a movie. So, okay, these are I think I went a little bit overboard with my initial thoughts about this movie when I am supposed to be talking about it. So, the movie takes place on this on this fictional town called Rosa. I think it was called Rosa, and basically this town has a sorcerer who becomes a king. It is a king called King Magnifico, in which he had a tragedy that the town kind of suffered a tragedy that he doesn't want to relive. So he studied alchemy and magic. So he becomes kind of like this benevolent king that defends the town. He even welcomed people who immigrated to the town, and he welcomes them because he also have kind of like he has this gimmick that he defends and keeps the town safe, and he does it with the trade-off that the people must give him their wishes. They kind of like they show their wishes are conserved in an orb. They're conserved in an orb. The people forget forget about their wishes. He hoards them and keeps them collected. And once in a while, he picks one or two person that he selected, and he say that, okay, I like your wish. Just you come. I'm gonna grant you your wish. And everyone is excited. Everyone gets excited. And of course, then it centers on our protagonist named Asha. She is kind of like a very caring girl, kind of idealistic to a fault. And she goes to have an interview so she can become his apprentice. And she gets even tips from the queen. But unfortunately, she realizes that the King Magnifico is not exactly what he cracks up to be. He keeps the wishes, and he doesn't want to. He doesn't give them back to all the people. And she's like, "Why are you keeping all those wishes? Or shouldn't you just give them back if you're not gonna grant them?" But the guy at once is like, "No, no, I'm the one who select who gets the wishes and who doesn't." Which this upsets Asha to the point that she begins to sing how it's unfair that not everyone's gonna get their wishes granted, and then she wishes upon a star. This star comes to her, bringing out light. Which kind of showcase kind of like an omen that the king is gonna be dethroned, and this sets off events with Asha teaming up with the star, which she named Star, and the star. I'll get to that. They want to rebel against the king so they can get back all those wishes and give it to the people. Or in her case, she wants to give it to her grandfather, which I'll get to that. And at the same time, King Magnifico, he finds this light of the star, and he perceives it as a threat. So gradually he becomes crazy and power hungry to the point that he even resorts to dark arts in order to keep himself into power. This is the best way I could talk about the plot about this movie, which it may seem a little bit simple enough, but when you put some of the elements that about how the storytelling logic it comes out, unfortunately you're gonna notice that most of the movie kind of relies a little bit too much on the explanation of it's magic. Don't think about it. Just go with the flow. It works like that because, well, magic. And I'm not against when you find a shortcut by saying that you don't need to explain too much. It's because magic or science fiction or whatever. But there are some moments in this movie that it feels like this excuse doesn't come off as pretty much as a payoff. It just happens because magic. But you know what? I think I can. I'm gonna try to wrap up a little bit on my head to talk about this vlog coherently. And let me talk about a little bit of the characters. First, we have our protagonist, Asha. She's played by Ariana DeBose. And now that where did I see this woman? You know what? Let me see in the IMDb, because now that I see for I see for her. Oh, she was on West Side Story. Sorry, is that I saw the picture on IMDb and I thought that she was on. I thought she was in the Heights, which is a movie that I really like. But anyway, about Asha. I mean, there's not as I can't explain so much about this character, but she was a little bit bland as a character. Sometimes it tries a little bit too hard from being adorable, but nowadays, you know, every single new Disney princess that is happening, they wanted to really milk the adorable side of that character. And she basically comes off as a very milquetoast personality. But I didn't hate her. I just thought that this character could have been a little bit better. And unfortunately, they wanted to create this hero that practically doesn't have any faults, and her hero's journey was a little bit kind of like weak in a sense. How can I explain it? First of all, for a character that at the beginning of the movie they wanted to showcase her that she is very caring, and that's basically her weakness, that she is too caring for others and all that stuff. It didn't show too much about that. This is a movie that it had to tell you that she's a good person instead of showing us, it's supposed to be a visual medium. They didn't show that. Do you see her being, caring for her family? Many people can do that. Kind of pull up a little bit more with that. Show her that she can be very caring with even strangers. Like, for example, they did that in Aladdin very, very well. Like, for example, when Aladdin is basically a thief, but but they show his caring side when he had this loaf of bread that he just eat, but then he sees the starving children. He just decides to give it away to the children. That showcased a little bit more of his personality without having to explain by saying that, oh, he's very caring. And that's it. And I will say that I was a little bit too worried about this character because the trailer kind of made her look like a very, very idealistic, to the point that is a very naive character. I was scared that she was gonna fall into dangerous moralities like they did in Ryan. God. But because the trailer kind of showcased that probably she is doing the right thing, but for the wrong reasons. But the movie didn't turn out like that. So blame it a little bit on the trailer when I get to talk more about it. Because this is a character who thinks that everyone deserves a wish. Well, in paper it sounds really noble. In my head, I was still thinking, what if your wish is not exactly pure-hearted? Like, for example, I want to be the greatest thief. I want to be the greatest bandit. I want to be the greatest serial killer. Look, I'm not trying to be the cynical, negative Nancy, but sometimes when you grow up and kind of see how messed up the world is and your innocence dies. That's how it kind of wills. And sometimes there is a cynical side of me that that doesn't want children or people to live in ignorance. Actually, I'm more encouraged to keep your innocence, but at the same time fight the dark moments of the world. I prefer kind of like a fighter than an ignorant. Okay, well, there's nothing much else I have to say about Asha. Okay, she's a good singer. We have, of course, the villain, King Magnifico, played by Chris Pine. This guy is probably one of the few positive things that I can say about the movie, because Chris Pine, he puts a lot of energy into his role. Although the villain, they wanted to make a second two-dimensional villain, but they even failed to do that because they just wanted to sneak in that he has a backstory in which he suffered the loss of his parents due to bandits. And they even tried to hammer into our head that this happened when because he shows a drake that is kind of like half bird and say that I don't want anything to happen to my town, not after this and everything like that. But then that plot point gets dropped down when the guy begins to think that his throne is on the verge of risking it, to the point that he just becomes extremely narcissistic and a little bit delightfully evil. And yeah, he embraces that, and he just becomes kind of like really, really villainous, like with a snap of the finger. And I wouldn't mind to make a two-dimensional villain, but what's up with that attempt to make him a three-dimensional character? So it was weird. Weird to see how it happened, and I wouldn't have mind if that three-dimensionality it just comes back to attempt something, but it doesn't. It doesn't. Basically, his biggest and funniest thing is that for a while I was behind him. I mean, he was kind of like selective on how he grants wishes and all that stuff, and he just wants to be selective on who gets the wish and who doesn't, because well, at first he did said a good point that sometimes there are some wishes that can be dangerous, or it can be dangerous, or it can harm everything, but now they find that this is evil and all that stuff. The more he becomes evil, I was like, okay, now this guy basically lost my respect, and he turns into a big douchebag, a really, really big douchebag, and a narcissistic, power-hungry maniac. Oh yeah, and then later in the movie, he uses a tome that have dark magic, which I'll get to that later. But the funny thing is that many people will question where that dark book comes from. Boy. Boy. What else? There's. Oh yeah, I have to also talk about the cute minions that this movie has. The star that kind of looks like what we'll get is there's a love child between Super Mario Luma and a Shy Guy. It is cute enough. Although its powers is a little bit inconsistent. When it first show up, it just show up because Asha wished upon a star, and this star apparently can grant simple wishes like making animals talk, which I'll get to that. We even get a musical about it, that it can grant all those small wishes. Oh, I'll get to that by the musicals. But apparently, it can grant it can grant the other people's wishes. So, and it didn't establish too much kind of like the rules about what this star can do and all that. Apparently, he's just there to assist Asha in making all those wishes, and this star technically has the immense powers, but still, it finds it finds ways to not use it for plot progression. There isn't even an excuse for that. And don't get me wrong, it's not that making wish stuff in a positive way. It cannot be done. Going back again with the Super Mario franchise, if there's wish-related stuff, there is Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario that wishing upon a star is kind of like the basis of the story, but they were better written and they did handle out why wishes cannot be done very easily. Like for example, in the case of Paper Mario, which the star in which it kind of reminded me of Twink from Paper Mario, but at least Twink had an excuse that he can grant big wishes because he's a young star, so he can only do menial wishes. But because the star on Wish cannot talk, but still can do all those other wishes that kind of seem a little bit big. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small, but still cannot do much. It kind of feels inconsistent. It's just there, to act cute and become kind of like the threat for our main villain, because the main villain wants to harness, the powers of stars so he can keep himself in power. And then we got Valentino, the goat. The goat was cute enough for people to buy plushies, but then he eats some of the star sparkles, and then he begins to talk with the voice of Alan Tudyk. Although there was some moment in which this guy gave me a little bit of a giggle, and I've been hearing a lot of people kind of say that he gets a little bit annoying, but you know what? I sat through Ryan, and that character was more annoying. Honestly, and actually has a better voice. I mean, I rather have a chat with Valentino more than if you ask me which is one of my most annoying Disney characters in the franchise, that's Vanellope from Wreck-It Ralph. God, her voice is so irritating. So. But anyway, this character is mostly a little bit of a comic relief and just there to spout out some comments. He helps out a little bit here and there, but you know that Disney, they always wanted to include some cute character. Although I'm not exactly against it. It's just that. Then we got Asha's friends, and I didn't notice. But these friends are kind of like a diverse version of the Seven Dwarfs, and I never even noticed that until people told me about it, and I was like, now that I think about the personalities, yeah, you're right. So people, if you're worried about the diversity of the upcoming the Snow White remake, because you're worried about the diversity of the dwarfs in those movies, don't worry. They brought them early. But you know what? I'm joking. I don't mind diversity as long as it's done right and not forceful. But you know what? The funny thing is that these friends, they're kind of forgettable because none of them are named. None of them. I think they mentioned some names about them, but I kind of forget them. But you can tell that you could easily name them with the names of the Seven Dwarfs, and you will notice. Like for example, the best friend who has glasses, and she walks with a crutch. She's kind of like Doc. There's a timid girl. She's, you know, who did it go? There's a small there's a small grumpy guy who is very sarcastic. He's probably also one of my favorite characters because his sarcasm is kind of spot on. I think one of them didn't talk, but he's a little bit of a dopey. There's one that is very sleepy, but they make him kind of like boring. And what else there is? Come on. Oh yeah, one sneezes. And what? It escapes me. Oh, it escapes me. Even the seven dwarfs are escaping me. Okay, but you get the idea. Oh, and speaking of this, one of them even, you know what, I'm getting ahead of myself. One of them apparently had a character arc, but it's a character arc that comes out a little bit more for convenience for the plot. And speaking of convenience for the plot, we also have the Queen. The Queen is basically kind of like the worried wife that she's very kind-hearted. She's basically kind of like a strong feminist character that they just wanted to say that, oh, I don't agree with my husband is doing. And she was doing fine until you kind of notice where this movie is going from, which I'll get to that. But I don't hate the character. I think maybe I'll give this character a pass. I'm sorry if I'm sounding a little bit. Sometimes all those negative people kind of leaks into my brain. And oh yeah, I did wanted to talk about Asha's family. The mother is fine. She was just there as a character, as a motherly character who gives her advice. You know, like most mother characters usually do. But the grandfather is kind of like the thing that kicks off the whole enchilada. Because when Asha wanted to become an apprentice, she also wanted to find a way to give her grandfather the priority to get his wish granted, because he was waiting 100 years to get his wish because he turned 100 years. You see that? He's gonna turn 100 because 100 years of Disney. You see that? You see that? Man, if they wanted to pull, this is the closest thing they have to pull for their 100th thing, and I'm not done with it. But basically, when Asha sees his wish, what he wants to be, he just wants to be a minstrel, and apparently, this is what King Magnifico considers dangerous. Why? I don't know why. I thought it was gonna build up for a plot twist, but it didn't. It didn't. It just showcased that King Magnifico is bad, and that is. I'm sorry, but if you're gonna pull that and saying that it is dangerous, I would have expected more, kind of like a twist. Oh, but I do also have to say that for a 100-year-old man, he was probably the healthiest old man I have ever seen. I knew people that reached their 100s, and usually those people have their body doesn't work properly because of the age. Their mentality also doesn't work well because of their age. I mean, there's some moments in which they can age very well in one way or another, but not exactly kind of like the case. But this grandfather he can walk very well, he can talk very well, and for him to become a minstrel, doesn't a minstrel requires a lot of mental effort in order to remember the lines and how to play or something like that? I'm sorry that I'm overanalyzing this, but still, the mental health of this guy, it makes me think that even the grandparents of Arnold from Hey Arnold, these guys are old, but they show more health, and I believe that there are older people than this guy. I can't believe. But yeah, even it's weird. Okay, I think I already talked enough about the most of the characters, Except there are some characters that they just shoehorn in order to say, hey, we're making making an homage to this character here and there. But it was just kind of like a blink and you'll desist and all that stuff. Let me talk a bit, and now I'm going with the technical part, which, okay, is gonna be always a given. Pretty animation, it looks good. I mean, what do you expect? It's Disney, and they hire some of the most talented people there is. But sometimes there are exceptions. While the watercolors and all, and the CGI, making it look like a combination between CGI and traditional, is not exactly a bad idea. Unfortunately, the way it was executed is that it's not very lively. It has all these this, how can I say, opaque colors that is kind of a little bit similar to Frozen 2 on the scale of color tones. That one of the reasons why I think why Frozen 2 wasn't exactly well received compared to the first one is that Frozen 2 really have kind of like really tone deaf colors, which in itself is not exactly a bad thing, but and I know that they wanted to a little bit to emphasize the the glitter and the stars and all this stuff, but it's something feels kind of like really off. And it doesn't help that for a movie that it brags itself for being a 100-year movie, you want to see something bigger. You want to see something more flashier, something that they have big effort. And is it me or there were some scenes in which I did find it rather empty. Probably I will say that the closest thing to have some semblance of appeal in graphic wise is on two of the musical moments, which I'm not gonna tell you which one it is. Oh yeah, there's another one, the third one, which it has to do with chickens. That one at least has some vibrant colors. Also, another thing that kind of turned me off a little bit on the movie is that I think it is a little bit beginning to wear off a little bit the impact of that every single Disney movie, everything have kind of like the same design. Especially on humans. The humans always, have the faces, sometimes the big nose, the mouths, or something, and something like that, and it feels a little bit too standard. Honestly, I'm not. I will have been mad, but I will kind of encourage a little bit to push it sometimes. I mean, it also happens sometimes with me and manga and anime. I mean, there is kind of like a basic structure on how to make character designs, and you can notice that even in manga they kind of fail in sometimes that most of the characters in different works, they kind of look equal because they don't deviate from the basic designs. Sometimes they do deviate and make the character designs a little bit more wackier or more serious, whatever the direction wants to be. But for Disney 100 episodes, I think they should have pushed it a little bit more on that, considering that most of the things feel a little bit empty. It needed more colors. The best way I can describe it is that if you could add a little bit more elements into the world, like for example, making a world instead of, how about making the village not look like a generic village, but make it something like in the Land of the Dead from Coco, something like that. It will make this world kind of like bigger, but unfortunately it didn't. And continuing on, when it's about music, because it's a Disney musical, I find the music kind of forgettable. I'm I'm not exactly the perfect guy to remember a song, but even I can tell when a song doesn't take me. Or there were some moments that I did kind of like tap my feet just to just to get in the flow. And I bet that little children will get into it because, well, little children are very impressionable. That's their trap, Disney. But I will guarantee you that the songs are not gonna stuck with you. Uh, I will probably, you probably might like one or two, but then it was like, I kind of forgot. Uh, if you ask me personally, there is a song that is sang by King Magnifico, and it's funny how most of the time it's the villain song that is the kind of like the most catchier, and that one isn't. That one is. I like where it was going, but then I forgot it. Then I forgot it. I'm not exactly the perfect person to that. Even I'm not good in remembering and pinpointing lyrics. There are some people who does it better than me. But either way, really, really, really forgettable. And now let's go a little bit with the themes that some story elements I am not exactly kind of like fond of. Let's go a little bit with the elephant in the room that many of those angry reviewers are kind of like complaining and all this stuff. I even saw one review from Film Thread, and I was kind of surprised that the first thing that some Disney people describe Asha, is that she is an activist. And when I look at the movie, it kind of is. She basically is a character who doesn't like how the kingdom is run, and for the most part, she basically rallies the whole, basically her friends and then the whole town to go against the king. So basically, this movie kind of becomes anti-authoritarian. I don't have exactly a problem with that because most stuff they do something like that. It's basically a hero's journey to like David defeating King Goliath. He was a king in some parts. I have to refresh all those biblical metaphors. And it's uplift and you know what? It's naturally uplifting. There's some people that even call this movie anti-Marxist because think about it. Imagine if the wishes are basically a little bit your freedom, and you have to give them to a higher authority, and that authority is the one that distributes that wealth or something. And now that I think about it, it kind of is. They just kind of put a little bit of a Disney twist, and it wouldn't be so bad. But unfortunately, what took me off a little bit of this movie is that the stakes were really low. This is probably one of the lowest stakes Disney movies I have ever seen. Because here's the thing. Yeah, it is a scummy thing, to hoard those wishes in order to keep yourself in power. And you know what? I could have buy the whole thing if the guy basically hoards those wishes and he just grants them to select people because he's very selective and very worried because he doesn't want something bad to happen to the town because of his experience. But you know what? For one thing, that outside threat is non-existent. There is a non-existent threat that is outside, which kind of defeats the argument of this guy's purpose of becoming so paranoid and he just becomes straight out evil. Second, The threat about bad wishes is also non-existent. I think I already mentioned that. There is a non-existent threat about bad wishes. They just and it's funny because sometimes Disney is on its best when it's sometimes morally gray. It's morally gray it becomes morally gray to the point that it's also positive. That's when sometimes Disney grows on its best. Like, for example, you saw Zootopia. Zootopia is it's just like, yeah, everyone can do what they want to be, but they also have to deal with obstacles, and not everything is sunshine like you used to be. Like, you deal with it, and yeah, it has its happy things, but it feels kind of like earned. But in this case, there's not exactly a cautionary tale. And by the way, for a movie that has its tagline saying "Be careful what you wish for," that's false advertising, because the only thing that Asha wishes is wishing by a star to get her grandfather's wish, and she basically steals it, which prompts the king to look for a traitor and puts the town, into peril. And Asha begins to say, it's my fault. It's not like something big that kind of like really happened. If you want a movie that teaches you how be careful what you wish for, then you should have played the kind of like the Monkey's Paw dilemma, and it doesn't happen. There is no Monkey's Paw dilemma. If you want something, a movie that has fun with the Monkey's Paw dilemma, watch this shitty but fun movie called Wish Upon. It's a horror movie, yeah, but it's a garbage movie, but it's so hilarious that I highly recommend you. And what else I was going for? Oh yeah, the third thing that makes this movie really low stakes is that, remember that I told you that the King Magnifico has this book that it pulls out of nowhere. It pulls out of nowhere, and he just say that, oh, with this dark magic now I can harness all those wishes, and he can crack those wishes with the palm of his hand. And when he destroys the wish of one person, that person apparently gets kind of like, oh, I feel grief. I feel sad. Really? Are you gonna go with that Care Bear thing? And this is a consequence that it doesn't last long, because the mother gets this problem first. She has her wish destroyed, and the woman is like, I feel grief. And she doesn't get depressed to the point that she doesn't want to go on with everything and all that stuff. No, she just keeps going, and then she acts normal. It's just kind of like a momentary moment of grief. And it doesn't work also because then her wish comes out of nowhere at the end of the movie, and she just regained herself. So there is no stakes. If you want, how could you fix that? Make the stakes a little bit more substantial. Like, for example, if you break a wish, you kind of lose a part of yourself. You become an empty shell for eternity. Almost like it's almost like it's thinking like the Dementor's kiss from Harry Potter. You get all your soul gets sucked in, and you are left like an empty shell. Even Kingdom Hearts made it better. Kingdom Hearts, when you lose your heart, you become an empty shell. You become almost nothing. And what's left of your heart, it turns into a being called a heartless, which are vicious beings that goes after other people's hearts. It becomes a threat. But no, it doesn't. There is not exactly a giant threat when there's non-existent. The only biggest threat that this movie gave in is that that King Magnifico becomes a narcissistic tyrant, and he just wants to he decides to enslave the people because he has the power, and he just feel like oh, I gave you all this, and now you people are so ungrateful that you want to destroy me. Well, yeah, you kind of become a tyrant. So it feels his all these things feels uneven. And by the way, I did kind of mention that we also have kind of like a theme that they just want to revolt against the king, and the queen even joins when she has nothing better to do. No, nothing. No, that was the wrong phrasing. She can't do anything for her husband. And guess what? Later in the movie, the movie kind of even wanted to find some hope for our villain, but then it comes to a point it was like, you know what? This guy's hopeless. That could have been brilliant, but again, I wasn't exactly 100% sure when the stakes were really, really low. Um, and this is something that I didn't even say it. I didn't say it on my first recording of this video. But the ending. Can you believe that the way everything is solved is by Deus Ex Machina? With the power of magic and the power of it's just magic. With the power of magic and friendship and all this stuff, the movie then pulls out a Deus Ex Machina. I'll leave it like that. I'll leave it like that. And you know what? Then the movie ends. The movie had so much bragging rights of this movie, thinking that it's so wonderful that I even forgot to mention that there was some moments that they just wanted to make homage to Disney movies, but again, it's a blink and you will miss it. Except for a moment in which in which King Magnifico references Peter Pan, Mary Poppins, and what was the other one? I don't remember. But anyway, the point is that when the movie ends, the movie feels so full of itself of that, calling this movie 100-year spectacular, so much that during the whole credits, you get nothing but drawings of all of Disney characters of all the previous movies in gold glitter outlines, and they showcase in order of timeline, on order of release. Like it starts out with with a picture of Snow White. Then what was it with Pinocchio? Then Fantasia, and so on until the last movie, and it shows during the whole credit. At first, I didn't notice. I was thinking of my thoughts if I like this movie or not, but then I realized, and I stayed during the whole credits to see which movie they're gonna acknowledge. And by the way, they acknowledge all the mainline movies. They don't showcase neither the sequels nor the direct-to-video movies and all that jazz. Only the ones in the main line. In a way, I am glad that they did acknowledge some of the obscure ones, like Treasure Planet or Atlantis: The Lost Empire. And they did showcase some that I like Lilo and Stitch and Zootopia. But of course, they also showcase the ones that people don't like Chicken Little and Home on the Range, which personally I didn't find them too bad. But I do understand why people don't like it. But speaking of that, they did acknowledge shitty ones like Big Hero 6, Strange World, and freaking Raya and the Last. Calm down. Oh, and here's something funny. For Big Hero 6, they didn't showcase the protagonist. Whatever. They didn't showcase some of the protagonists. But here, help me out on one thing, and if you see it or not. I was so distracted that I haven't even realized if they put the black cauldron. But either way, that was probably the laziest 100-year celebration I have seen. And I expected better from a humongous company called Disney. I hate to admit it, but Once Upon a Studio, as much as I haven't seen it and gave it some preemptive slack, that one had the better idea. You know what could have been a better 100-year movie? How about something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? But not like the Chip 'n Dale Rescue Ranger. That one sucked. And speaking of which, I don't know if they acknowledge Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I haven't. Oh no, they didn't. No, they didn't. Maybe because it's Canada live action. I think I talk enough about this movie. But in the end, Disney's Wish. The best I could say, it is a big disappointment. This is probably one of the most disappointing Disney movies I have seen. I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. But still, it's a low-tier movie. Honestly, I asked the audience, stop defending it for just lowbrow reasons, like saying that, oh, I enjoyed it, it's pretty or something like that. No, you deserve something better, and this is not. Although this movie is not something that I am urged to, run and see it again. But I can see myself watching this movie again, and probably if I shut my brain a little bit off, I can get some kind of enjoyment. But it's more kind of like a generosity than an act of kindness. And we can't be kind and we can't be generous all the time. This is something that it deserved better, but it was just at best below average, and at worst is forgettable. It's just forgettable blandness. And that's it. That's much. That is the best I can say about this movie. Just wishing that it could have been better.